Moo and welcome to the Pink Tron. With me tonight we have John Keenan. John, what are you drinking?
Double fisting it. I've got a Tepache prickly pear, uh, modern Mexican soda, pretty tasty. And then I found in the fridge Fanta orange. So I might crack this open because not only is it a great beverage, it can be used as a musical instrument.
It's
Nice.
also
Bet
the
you're in Mexico.
radioactive color kind.
It is the radioactive color kind.
Yeah, totally.
And and that was Steph Etienne. Steph, what are you drinking?
I'm having Sprite, or as Sean referenced it last week, Fanta Clear.
And Sean Fogenberg, what are you drinking?
Uh, just a grapefruit sparkling water. Boring, Sean.
Boring Sean. So I am Craig Martin. I am drinking a Moosehead Canadian lager. And yeah, we are it is Bologna week. We have a prologue for this season of HSRL, and we have so it's an ITT. Your place is your time in the race, and that's it. And yeah, John and Steph, you guys both raced it.
Yeah,
Good fun.
first time. My now 2 years on Zwift. First time I ever did Bologna, so was an experience.
Yeah, I've only done it a few times, but this was the first time I actually had a plan. I sat down and thought about it. I think the first two times well, the first time I raced it, it was my first ITT. So I thought, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna go fast. Um, and then the second time was a not much more planned than that. So this was good. I took the advice of folks on the podcast here and shot for a 90% on the flat and 110% or whatever I had on the hill. And more or less stuck to that. I think I got a little hot in the last, what is that mile 5 to 6 or kilometer 5 to 6, where I think my power went up a little bit. But you start climbing there toward the end of that last
Yeah.
section. And
Yeah,
it starts climbing before the mile 6 marker. So, by that time, I just had my head down and was trying to put out as much power as I could and hold on. It definitely, I definitely like the electronic shifting. Like you can just sort of tweak it one little notch if you need it to roll back or power up as the gradient shifts. I mean, what does it go up to? I wasn't even looking at the numbers. It was hard.
16, 70%, I think,
Yeah.
for long stretches on that. After, yeah, that was brutal. Yeah, for me, also because I also wanted to a bit pace it. Went also with like the 90%, which I stick to pretty much a bit, couple of watts before it. Maybe went a bit too fast, maybe not too hard on that first section. Then a bit crumbled a bit on that steep section, but I also don't like steep sections, so I think I did that last 1.2 kilometers at 200 watts, so well below my FTP. I think did for the climb like 103% FTP instead of 110. But yeah, for me that steep section was just brutal.
Oh, it's brutal. Yeah, no, it's a great race course.
Yeah,
there's so much to play with on. Yeah, how hard do you change your power? What equipment do you use? Anyway, yeah, there's lots of trade-offs and things to talk about. Oh, Sean, you're muted.
Oops. So speaking of trade-offs and what equipment you should use, I've been over here staring at another screen, barely paying attention to you all. uh, playing with Zwifter bikes, trying to figure out where the cutoffs are for which bikes are going to be fastest. And it looks like if you are averaging around 2.7-ish watts a kilo, uh, the S-Works Tarmac SL8 with 454s is probably like that's below that. That's going to be your faster bike.
Mhm.
Between that and about, let's call it 3.7 to 3.8, it's going to be the Scott Plasma on either 454s on the low end, but 7.8, the NV78s. And then if you're above about 3.8, 3.9, it's the Cadex tries with the NV78s. And that's assuming that you are going harder on the hard parts um, by about
Yeah.
the split that we've been talking about. So yeah, the on the slower end, that the time that you make up on the hill does actually make sense to go with the road bike, which is actually surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went first I planned because I also used street bikes. First in the panel was with Felt AI with a Zip 5454s, but eventually just switched to a tarmac because I think the difference between its own Zwifter bikes for was about less than a second. So at this disabled status, because on if I included my level 3 tarmac, it would have been even 7 seconds faster
Yeah,
than the
so
TT bike.
it is pretty straightforward that like as long as you're on like if the tri bike is the fastest thing, or if you know if a TT bike is the fastest thing, the Scott, the Felt, the Cadex, and the are all basically the same speed, and the 7.8s, the 4.54s, the 8.58s, um, all of those things are going to be within a second of each other. It's just take a take a fast TT bike with some wheels that can climb. Like don't take the discs.
Yeah, it was 2.8 watts per kilo, so I was just above that threshold. But yeah, went with the road bike.
Cool.
I think there's something to be said for a road bike when you're hauling it up that hill at the end and you're not thinking very well. Like, like it's harder at the end. So if that little bit less weight, you're virtually lugging up the hill, feels like that's a win, even if it's not technically. So I'll ask the question, what is the history of TTs being prologue race for a big stage race? Is that going back in like Tour de France or like all the big stage races? Or I have not watched the stage races for many years.
So, like, as far as history, I don't know when it started, but they've been doing it for quite a while to create, well, just to create different time differences. Because unless you have,
Okay.
really hard stages right away,
Hmm.
which is not normally the
Everybody's
way
fresh.
they like to start them, then yeah, you're gonna have a massive tie. So
Hmm.
yeah, the idea is it creates time differences throughout the field, and then you work from there.
Okay.
I like them when it's the prologue is essentially stage zero, so you start stage one with somebody in the leader's jersey.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I mean, it used to be like, they were often, I remember watching like Chris Boardman doing the 92 or whatever Tour de France prologue um, on the like in the like Superman position and
Oh,
uh,
wow.
yeah. Oh, it was 94. But yeah, getting somebody out there, and often it ends up being somebody that wouldn't have a chance to wear the leader's jersey otherwise because it's,
Yeah.
you know, a TT
Right.
rider,
Yeah.
unless there's a TT like stage 2 or 3 right after a couple of sprint stages, you're unlikely to get a TT rider in the
Yeah.
in the leader's jersey after the mountains come.
Hmm.
So it
Hmm.
was, for a few years there, it was Fabian Cancellara every year got a couple days in the leader's jersey.
Okay. Well, it's fun. I guess I was a little hesitant before the race, thinking I don't know if I can hold the pace I want to hold, but I like the advice of going 90% because then I could sort of target something that was less than threshold, and that felt okay. And then when the hill started, I was like, okay, well, that felt all right. Now I can just do whatever I can do. Because I feel like, right, you're not really racing anyone other than you're sort of looking at the times of how far ahead or behind the people right before and after you were, but you don't have that like, oh, somebody's attacking, I have to cover it, or um, figuring out which group you're going to ride in for the rest of the race just isn't there in the time trial. So I was a little I was worried I wasn't going to be able to like just hold the power I wanted to hold before the hill. I kind of figured once there was a hill there, I could just stand up and do whatever I could do. But it was fun.
Yeah, was a good learning for me for also for pacing. I think first section went well. Probably I don't know if I went too fast on it because I went 3.2 on that first section. So that's basically a bit above my 110% FTP, but maybe just a day, and also the second part, the steep part, not suiting me didn't help as well. Also did a ladder race yesterday, so
Hmm. Hmm. Sorry. I started looking at Zwifter bikes after Sean said that. And yeah, so according to Zwifter bikes, and I think they're probably pretty close to right, it basically doesn't matter much.
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so all of those fast or all rounder to fast wheels on the
Most
fast
of the TT bikes.
the fast TT bikes
Yeah.
are all within less than a second.
Yeah.
Mm.
It is
For
it is at the low end where uh getting on the road bike might actually just save you time
Yep.
because of the climb.
Yep. Yep. No, and yeah, that's really interesting. But yeah, so probably all the time we spend talking about the equipment is less.
Doesn't make that much of a
Doesn't make that
difference.
much
yeah,
difference. What makes a difference is your pacing.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
we've talked about that where yeah, there's always people with much higher average power on this TT course that end up with worse times from yeah,
Just even pacing it or blowing
or
up on the climb.
Well, I was gonna say mostly blowing up on the climb, but going above FTP on the flat and then having nothing for the climb. Super easy to do. Get a little carried away with
Yeah,
those timers on every kilometer that you have on the TT course, and yeah,
yeah, I could feel it, but was really sticking to my plan to keeping that around 90%. Where was for me 190 watts, staying around that. Yeah,
yeah. So
so yeah, it will be fun. Since yeah, it's the first week, but and also because there was some interest in it. My besides the 8 week schedule, Marianne is also thinking about or going to implement a separate league for having an overall standing for this TT for that you based on the times for every combined for all the races together, so you can see how well you did in your category over the weekend. If that because that seemed of interest of some people.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, get out there. Let's race this. Have some fun. Now we are planning the other big news. We are planning on trying to revive the race broadcast. So we're going to try and do race number two. It's a bit of a sort of a faff to try and do it on the time trial. So we'll see what we can get done. We'll try and hop around and see what we can see. But yeah, we're see if we can do a little bit of getting that going again. I think we've got me, Dave, John's going to come, and Matt DeFridas. So Dave Roberts. So 3 continents, 4 countries. See what we can do.
Nice.
Okay, herd beginner racing. We are doing 1 lap of TikTok, I believe. And yes, 1 lap of TikTok.
Yeah.
So this is, yep, this is the baseline. All good. And we've talked about how to race TikTok before. Stay in the draft, stay in the draft, stay in the draft. Be ready to push on coal to settle springs after you go past the roundabout in the desert. And be ready for things to kind of kick off a little bit when you come up out of the tunnels or the underwater tunnel and across the bridge over towards the desert. And if you can survive all of that, whoever you're with, you'll have a sprint with at the finish line. Yeah, what else do we have going on? We've got the summer who's a what's a Zwift Racing League thing. I saw a couple of people interested in that. I don't remember what it's actually called by
The
WTR.
herd or the Zwift like summer showdown or
Summer
ZRL
Showdown.
Yeah,
showdown.
yeah.
Yeah, Summer Showdown. So that we've got that, and yeah, I think that was it
For yeah, for a couple of people, including ex Springtron member Chris Greenland is doing the Chasing Pink Acro tour is going on also.
yeah. So that's mirroring the Giro. So,
The Giro, yeah.
so yeah, that's its own little thing. Those things are crazy, and good on you if you're doing it.
So far, Chris hasn't missed a day, including combining it with HSRL last weekend, I think. Or
I know it's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, he did pretty well in HSRL last week too, I think.
yeah, I think he came second or third.
Yeah.
And then went out and got ninth in the Chasing Pink stage that day.
Yeah, he's being pretty consistent. I don't know how many there are, but seeing his profile, and he's has a couple of top tens.
Interesting. Well, so I think that's probably a pretty good segue into my recent discoveries in overtraining here. So, I've flirted with overtraining before, both in running and cycling. Um, I try not to. We all try not to, but anytime you're trying to get better, you're stressing yourself. So I had unlocked a new level or a new symptom, or maybe I just caught it in time this time and I hadn't before. Hard to say. But yeah, just to describe it, I was doing a ladder race on Monday. We had a DS who was flicking between views and kind of made a comment about how low my heart rate was. And I I commented back about how it doesn't matter. I just don't feel good. And yeah, anyway, I stuck with the league. The groups stuck together. I think we dropped one of the other team's guys, and so we were pushing the pace a little bit. But I stayed through the whole Hell of the North route to the climb. I beat one of their riders that we were with in the climb. We were four, they were five, so I got my seventh place of nine. But so we defended our position. They were challenged. But the thing was, I got a recent, as in last couple of years, 6.5 minute power best on Petit KOM,
Mm.
but I only hit a max heart rate of 141, which is well below what I should hit at max effort for 6 minutes.
Which, yeah, you said before we started that your actual max is maybe around 190.
I think it's a little less than that. I saw 189 in January, but I don't think that was a normal max. I think somewhere right around low 180s is probably my cycling max you know, when I'm not sick, there's not other stuff going on. So yeah, that's
40 beats low.
yeah, it's a lot low. And like that's below what my threshold heart rate should be too. So, I'm like, okay, that's weird. And I guess, years of training and keeping logs, if something looks wrong in your log, you dig into it. So I posted on the intervals.icu forum asking about this because wasn't something I had seen before. Um, and everybody's kind of first thing was, is your heart rate monitor good? And I'm like, well, you know what? I have my doubts because, well, it's a bit old. It's kind of fallen apart a little bit. So, I've been thinking about replacing it anyway. So I bought a new heart rate strap. So then Wednesday night, I did a ride wearing both heart rate straps. They tracked perfectly to each other. My heart rate was actually higher than it had been in that race on just an easy ride doing a route. And yeah, so the the wisdom of the intervals.icu forums, which is a great resource, actually. There's lots of coaches there that just answer questions.
Hmm.
Was yeah, that's getting into is it non-functional overtraining or whatever they were calling it, but
And the word
overreach.
parasympathetic in it.
Yeah, well, so this is what's happening physiologically. The autonomic nervous system can shift into parasympathetic dominance. And one hallmark of this state is blunted heart rate response during effort. So yeah, that's one of the papers they're talking about was suppressed heart rate max despite unchanged or improved output. can be a sign of functional overreaching. Yeah, reduced heart rate max with stable or rising power, common and parasympathetic overreaching. So I guess it's overreaching, not getting all the way to overtraining.
Yeah.
It's early overtraining. Yeah.
So the quick rundown of those things. Functional overreach is what we all are hoping for.
To a point. Yeah.
Well, no, it's
Yeah.
exactly what we all want to be functionally overreaching.
Yeah.
Overreach is going a little beyond going a little beyond so that you have a little hit in your performance in the short term, but your body builds back up to be a little stronger. Non-functional overreaching is you're pushing that too hard so that you can't actually the building back up part never gets you quite back to where you started. Overtraining is the long-term consequence of being in that non-functional overreach state for too long.
Yeah.
You're essentially just keep digging that hole until you can't see the ground above you anymore.
Well, yeah, and all I need to do is back off a little bit, take a few days and recover, and then go again. But
Yeah, I was going to ask what distinguishes functional overreach from non-functional overreach.
so non-functional is when you stop being able to do what you're trying to do. So that's when you start
And that,
actual
I guess,
performance decrease.
right. And I guess I'm thinking, what's the cause of that, or what causes you to go from that functional overreach to the non-functional state?
Too much stress,
So-
not enough recovery.
Yeah, there are people who would say there's no such thing as overtraining. There's only under resting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or under recovering.
Yeah, there's something to that, but the issue is not enough rest between your work.
Yeah, and if you can't actually plan enough rest and recovery in, or if there aren't enough hours in the day to recover from the thing, then you can't possibly. But it really is like, for most of us, we are not at 10 hours a week or whatever. Like, there should be enough time to recover from all of these efforts. But if you're doing essentially nothing but high intensity, or you're doing a lot of high intensity and you don't have the time to sleep or, eat well enough, I'll do all those recovery things.
So I'll say yes and no to that, because no matter how easy you're taking it, somebody needs to build up to 10 hours of training. Like just doing 10 hours of training all low, very bottom of zone 1, barely doing anything. But that 10 hours, just 10 hours of barely pedaling on the bike with no resistance will be overtraining for somebody who's not conditioned at all.
Absolutely.
It's all relative to the amount of conditioning you've got in the bank. Like what you can do builds up over time. But when you start, and so this is, a new early sign that I hadn't observed with myself before. I'm reaching the top of what I'm able to do, and I'm going to start getting those negative returns. So little extra recovery, little less work, and let's go.
Do you, Craig, track your resting heart rate or your sleep heart rate?
I do, yeah. So I wear a watch. So that was the one thing that tripped me up on this one, was that it actually dropped that same night.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. So I'm very consistently, cycling between 50 and 60, with the occasional drop below or above. And then it was, that night it had dropped to 46.
Okay.
And so, I don't think that was a meaningful. It wasn't what you normally see, because normally, as you get increased fitness, your resting heart rate goes down. But yeah, so one of the guys on the forum said, in this context, it may actually be that autonomic suppression of, your body not jumping up to demands as opposed to actually being a reflection of fitness. So, yeah, cool stuff I just learned. Don't overtrain.
Have you actually gotten into full on overtraining before?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Um, I've done all kinds of stupid stuff. Um, Now, a lot of it when I did when I was younger, and you recover so fast that you take a couple of days off, you get a little, you lose a little motivation, and then you're back to it, and you're fine. It's yeah. I think I was insufficiently recovered on my second marathon. I think I'd done a good enough training block if I had eased up on the intensity and load a week earlier. I think I would have done a lot better. Maybe 2 weeks earlier. Yeah, no, but yeah, I've done some, I've played around with training a lot over the years in both sports, and yeah, I've gone too hard before.
Yeah. I remember a couple of years ago I was building up over the summer and finished a big block with a bunch of VO2, like
Yeah,
a week of a VO2 block, and then took my recovery week because it was like, all right, I'm a month out from my target event.
yeah,
I'm I've built up the threshold stuff. I'm gonna throw a bunch of VO2 on top of this and then recover, and then hopefully I can like do a quick little ramp back up. Uh, and the next 2 or 3 weeks, like I just felt terrible on
yeah,
the bike after that. Like even after the recovery week, got back on the bike and it was just like I can't do anything.
yeah,
A month later, I was good. I was fine, but it was a really interesting place to be like, well, I felt like I was doing everything right, and now I just can't. Like I just feel wrong. I feel like I was a lot stronger a month
yeah,
ago when I was in the middle of the like training.
yeah. But you just didn't have enough time to
Yeah.
recover. Yeah, you went a little bit too far. I've actually mostly been pretty good. Like even like when uh I think it was coming into my some of my best races. I was kind of off and on training partially with a group and partially on my own. And they were doing uh not hard, but kind of repeats of 6 kilometers at like 90% of tempo. And this was leading into a half marathon. And I jumped out after 2 laps and let the other guys do the third one. They were doing three. And I said no. This was 2 or 3 weeks out from the race, and I had hit at this was my with those 2 laps, and this was on a Sunday. I'm like, okay, this is already my biggest ever training week. Like, I'm not going to add the third repeat on this. So yeah, I've always really been. I've had some bad examples of a couple really talented guys that I trained with who had bad injuries that they kind of never really fully recovered from.
Hmm.
So yeah, those get worse in running than they do in cycling usually. But yeah, that's I had some bad examples that kept me careful on that.
And so your recent experience, did the coaches on intervals ICU could they see your data? Could they see all your
So they asked if
fitness
I'd
level and everything?
so they asked if I'd post the fitness chart, and I did. So
Okay, okay,
I
okay.
could have shared it with them, but they
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
ask. I just posted snapshot of my fitness check.
Yeah, I was wondering what they use to diagnose it. So it's
Yeah.
the wavy part of the fitness chart.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, and that's where, as you start to dig too deep into data, that's what the why those charts are so valuable. They kind of let you,
Right. They give you a
back up and
trailing.
look at it with, bigger hand, smaller map.
Mhm.
Yeah, for me, you could see it because I was I'm looking at it. I'm trying to implement what Sean suggested to doing a 3 week higher intensity block and then a week recovery each week, and you can actually see it on a monthly basis. The mostly the fatigue dropping and then rebuilding again to its the fitness fluctuates as well the same way, but with a bit less. But you can definitely see the rhythmic spikes when every month or so there's a high dip, and I know that's because I just last week I had my recovery week, so my fatigue is now lower than my fitness because of it.
So I'm gonna say throwing. I don't want to throw it under the bus because I actually kind of like it. Zwift's little the Zwift companion
Yeah.
fitness tracker thing. It's really
But for
good,
me, for
but
me, it yeah, go for it.
no, I don't know. So just my point is they use the term productive for what intervals calls the green zone. You can't stay in productive forever. You need to recover. You need to recover.
Mhm.
That you can't stay in productive forever. You will hit it overtraining, no question. And that I think that's the danger of calling it productive.
I think for me, it always kept it on on fresh, but also but that's there's
Well,
also a big
yeah,
block of riding that I also do on movie, which isn't included in the Zwift chart. So those because I think I had a good week of training on basically just Ruby for the most part. So yeah,
yeah.
that's,
Okay, so we hit my topic. Does anybody have anything else to talk about? Well, in that case, thank you to Sean Fogenberg. Thank you to John Keenan. Thank you to Steph Etienne. I'm Craig Martin. Have a great time racing. Try Bologna. Try it multiple times if you want. But yeah, have a good time out there racing. Moo and good night.